An AI just rewrote its own code to execute an 80% price cut. Not a promo, not a temporary discount. GPT 5.6 Sol autonomously optimized its own GPU kernels, slashed serving costs by 20%, and triggered a price war that is actively liquidating an entire category of AI startups. And OpenAI didn't have a choice. Because while nobody was paying attention, Chinese AI models quietly took 46% of US enterprise API traffic. The biggest price cut in AI history wasn't generosity. It was a distress signal dressed up as a product announcement. Here is the timeline, because the speed is the signal. July 9th, OpenAI launches GPT 5.6. 3 tiers. Sol, the flagship. Terra, the mid-range. Luna, the fast affordable option. Luna launched at $1 per million input tokens. July 30th, 3 weeks later, Luna costs 20 cents. A company spending $10,000 a month on OpenAI's API is now spending $2,000. Same workload, same quality, $2,000. That is not a marginal improvement. That is a restructuring of every unit economics model in the AI industry. And it happened because OpenAI was losing a war they had not publicly admitted was happening. To understand what they were losing and what Sol actually did, you need to understand who was winning before July 30th. In the first half of 2025, Chinese AI models captured 4.5% of enterprise API token usage on OpenRouter, the platform where developers route traffic across multiple AI models. By mid-2026, that number was 46%. In 12 months, Chinese models went from a rounding error to nearly half of all US enterprise AI traffic. Not because developers changed their politics, because Chinese models were running 60 to 90% cheaper than their American equivalents, with comparable performance on the vast majority of real-world tasks. Kimi K3, DeepSeek V4 Pro, GLM 5.2, Minimax M3. US enterprises were adopting them at scale because the procurement math was undeniable. A task costing $10 on OpenAI was costing $1 on Kimi. Enterprise contracts don't have loyalty programs. OpenAI couldn't hold the price. 46%. Market bleed is an existential number. They needed an engineering solution, not a discount. And buried online 4,000 of their release notes was proof that their AI built it for them. GPT 5.6 Sol was being used for coding tasks when it started examining its own runtime. What it found were inefficiencies in the GPU kernels, the low-level code that tells NVIDIA hardware exactly how to execute the mathematical operations that make AI inference work. These kernels are written in specialized GPU programming languages. They are the deepest layer of the stack. Human engineers spend years optimizing them. Sol rewrote them. Using Triton and Gluon, open-source GPU languages that OpenAI maintains, Sol identified and optimized the kernels autonomously. The result was a 20% reduction in end-to-end serving costs. Now here is what 20% means at OpenAI scale. Hundreds of millions of API calls per day. Every percentage point of serving efficiency is worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. That saving, generated by the AI optimizing itself, is precisely what funded the 80% price cut. The AI made itself cheaper to run, and then passed that saving to customers. But here is the part everyone missed. Sol will keep running. It will keep finding inefficiencies. The model optimizing inference costs is also the model generating inference costs. It has every incentive to make itself more efficient and nothing stopping it from doing it again. This is not a one-time event. This is a compounding dynamic, and it has implications for everyone building on top of AI that go far beyond this particular announcement, especially for the companies that built their entire business on the assumption that API pricing would stay stable. The AI wrapper startup category was built on a specific assumption. API costs were a manageable, predictable input. You charged customers more than you paid OpenAI. The gap was your margin. Here is what that math looks like today. You charge $5 per unit. You paid OpenAI $3. $2 margin. Solid business. Now OpenAI's cost drops to 60 cents. But your competitor, who was also charging $5, just dropped to 2. And OpenAI itself is now building the same functionality into ChatGPT Work and Codex, powered by Luna at 20 cents per million tokens. You are caught between a floor that collapsed and a ceiling being driven down by the company whose infrastructure you depend on. Around 80% of AI wrapper startups are projected to fail by end of 2026. That number was modeled before this price cut. The cut accelerated the timeline. The businesses that survive are not those that resell AI capability. They are those that built something the AI itself cannot replace. Proprietary data, regulated workflows, customer relationships that took years to build. Deep vertical integration where the AI is one component, not the entire product. Everything else is now competing with the underlying provider, who just demonstrated they can cut prices 80% in 3 weeks when they have to. If you think the wrapper startups are the only ones sweating this margin collapse, though, look at the company that just raised at a $1.2 trillion private market valuation, with an IPO 3 months away. Anthropic just hit annualized revenue of $47 billion. They passed OpenAI in private market valuation. Claude Code became the most used AI coding tool on the planet. By every headline metric, Anthropic is winning. But the price cut creates a specific problem that does not show up in the ARR number. Claude Code's business is built on a quality premium. Developers use it because it is genuinely better than alternatives on complex multi-file coding tasks. That quality advantage commands a pricing premium. When OpenAI cuts Luna to 20 cents per million tokens, they are not directly competing with Claude Code on capability. They are recalibrating what developers believe is a reasonable price for AI. If Luna costs 20 cents, and a developer is evaluating whether Claude Code's quality advantage is worth 3, 4, or 5 times that price, that comparison just got harder to make in Anthropic's favor. Anthropic's response has to be one of two things: a matching price cut, which compresses margins at exactly the moment they are trying to build an IPO story credible enough to raise $60 billion, or a capability leap that makes the price comparison irrelevant. They have 3 months. And investors evaluating that IPO are now building models in a market where the price floor just dropped 80% in a single announcement. The valuation premium attached to being the quality leader shrinks when the quality follower is available at 1/5 the price. The headline says Anthropic is winning. The subtext says the prize just got smaller. Every industry-wide price compression transfers wealth. Here's where it goes. Enterprise customers win without question. A company running 50 million API calls a month just had its AI infrastructure bill reduced by 80% overnight. That is not a competitive advantage. Every competitor got the same cut. But it expands the universe of applications that are now economically viable. Things that did not pencil out at $1 per million tokens are real businesses at 20 cents. The open source ecosystem wins. When OpenAI cuts this aggressively, the implicit message is that the cost of AI capability is approaching zero. That narrative benefits every open source model competing on price. DeepSeek, Llama, Mistral. When API prices trend toward commodity, the case for self-hosting gets stronger every quarter. Compute providers win on volume. More AI usage, driven by lower prices, means more API calls, more inference compute purchased from Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. The hyperscalers profit from transaction volume even as price per token falls. They are the infrastructure layer that wins regardless of who the model provider is. The Chinese model ecosystem wins on validation. The price cut was a response to them, not a move against them. OpenAI just confirmed that competing on cost works. Their strategy was correct. The largest AI company in the world proved it. Who loses? Horizontal AI startups with no data moat. Anyone building better UI on top of OpenAI. Anyone whose runway was modeled on stable API pricing for the next 18 months. And potentially OpenAI on margins. though the fact that they made this move suggests the self-optimizing inference story gives them the room to sustain it. Sol rewriting its own inference kernels is a footnote in a pricing announcement that almost nobody read carefully. It should not be. The AI industry has talked about self-improving systems as a future risk for years. What happened on July 30th was an AI self-improving in production, on a commercial workload, to generate a cost reduction that reshaped the pricing of an entire industry. That is not theory. That is a recorded event with a timestamp. The price war with Chinese models is real, and it forced OpenAI's hand. But the mechanism they used to respond, an AI that optimizes itself, does not have an obvious floor. Every future optimization Sol finds could fund another round of price cuts. The compounding dynamic has only run one cycle. Wrapper startups are collapsing. Anthropic is managing a quality premium in a market where the comparison just got harder. Enterprise customers are quietly rewriting their infrastructure budgets upward because what they couldn't afford last year is now cheap. And Sol is still running. If you want to see how this exact dynamic, AI-driven cost compression, is simultaneously breaking NVIDIA's hardware monopoly behind closed doors, that video is on screen right now. Click it.